What's up, everybody? Time for another Illustrator tutorial. Today we're going to talk about the type tool a little bit. We're going to be going over how to turn your text into shapes so you can fully manipulate them to create some illustrated typography. And we're also going to be going over the effect panel. So let's get started. The first tool we're going to use here is the type tool. It's right over here on the side. If you hover over it, it says type tool, gives you the little T in parentheses to let you know that that's what the key command is. And it's a very simple tool to use. All you have to do is click and drag to create this text box. It'll show you how big the text box is by giving you that blue line. Let go, and it fills with this lorem ipsum placeholder text. All of that text is highlighted, so in order to get rid of it, all you need to do is type. So I'm going to write the word happy because that's going to be the word I'm going to be using for this demonstration today. Now I'm going to go to my black arrow, this selection tool, and done. So the next thing I want to do is I want to turn this text into a shape. That way I can fully manipulate what I can do with this text. And it's very, very simple. All I have to do is go up to type and create outline. And what you're going to see is this line underneath the text that shows me that this is a text box is going to disappear, and I'll be able to see all the anchor points in paths that make up the shapes that look like the letters. So let me just show you how this works. I'm going to click create outlines, and as you can see, that line went away, and now I have all these anchor point paths, and it's the same thing as if I used a pen tool to draw this. So now that I have this text all set up, I can go ahead and I can edit this any way I want. Meaning, I can use my selection tool, I can right click, I can ungroup them, which will let me use all the letters individually, I can resize the letters individually, I can change the colors of letters individually, or all together if I wanted to, but it lets me do a lot more than I could if this was just a regular text box. Because these are shapes, I can treat them like shapes. But let me hit Command V a couple times and bring this all the way back to the beginning. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to grab all these and I'm going to hit Command G to group them because I do want to use all of them together at the same time for now. And I'm going to go into my effects panel to start editing these shapes. So the effects panel is right up here. It's a little drop down menu, and you're going to see when you click down on this, you have a whole series of effects called Illustrator Effects and a bunch called Photoshop Effects. I'm going to go through almost all of them, show you what they do, show you kind of how they work, and then you can experiment from there because depending on the words you're using, the shapes you're using, whatever it is you're creating, these tools and these effects treat different shapes and they affect different shapes differently. So let's start with the first one. All right, so the first one that I'm going to show you is going to be distort and transform and free distort. So what happens with free distort is this little menu pops up and it shows you whatever you have selected. So if you don't have anything selected, nothing is going to pop up. But because we had the word happy selected, it showed up. Now I can use these 4 corner pieces to distort any way I want. Distort the word happy any way I want. So I can click here, grab it, and I can pull this up. I can click here. I can pull this over and line it up. I can move this in a little bit, move this in a little bit, and then if I hit OK, boom, now I have the word happy, and it looks like it's sort of popping off the page. All right, so let me move this off to the side, and I'll hit Command Z and bring this all the way back, and let's try something new. So the next one we're going to go over is going to be Effect. Once again, distort and transform. This time we're going to go pucker and bloat. So you get a slider bar when pucker and bloat shows up, and in the corner of all of the slider bars you get this little checkbox called preview. By checking this, what it does is it lets you preview or view whatever's happening to your selection in real time. Meaning, if I go pucker and I let go, I can see what's going on as I'm working on it. So I can slide this a little bit less, I can slide this a little bit more, whatever I want to do. And as you can see, depending on how far you slide this, the words become completely unreadable or maybe just a little bit spiky, something like this. Bloat is the complete opposite. So if I pop this out, it makes it a little bit more bubbly, but if I go all the way to the end, once again, it makes it completely unreadable. So you can definitely play around with this. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is we're going to go up to Effect, we're going to go Distort and Transform again, and we're going to go Roughen. Just like with Pucker and Bloat, Roughen has a little preview in the bottom. And as you can see, it roughens up the edges just like the name suggests. Because I have this preview on, I can mess around with the sliders, I can mess around with the amount of detail. We can see exactly how this works as I'm doing it. We can make the points smooth or we can make them corner points, which as you can see goes from pointy to more of a rounded edge. And you can kind of play around with this a little bit and you'll get a cool little effect like that once it's all said and done. Okay, so going back, we're going to go Effect, once again, Distort and Transform, Tweak. And same thing, get a little preview. You can modify anchor points, the in control points, the out control points. It basically tells you where you're modifying these different anchor points from. And you can tweak this, twist it, turn it however you want. And once again, as long as you have this preview checked, you can view it in real time. So the next two, twist and zigzag, work exactly the same way. Twist, preview, just tap this up, and what it'll do is it'll twist this all around, which is kind of a cool effect. Command Z to bring it back. Effect, Distort and Transform, zigzag, once again, preview, and this makes it kind of go a little crazy all over the place. And once again, a lot of these you're really not going to use an insane amount, but they do give you some pretty cool effects when you're starting to mess around with typography. Okay, so now that we've messed with all of the Effect, Distort, and Transform options, we're going to go into the Stylize options. We're going to skip Path, Pathfinder, and Rasterize for now. We'll get back to them on a later date, but the Stylize ones give you some pretty cool things that you might be able to utilize for this project or projects coming up. The first of which is Drop Shadow. And what the Drop Shadow does is, if you preview it, it will give you a dropped shadow. You can edit the opacity on this, you can edit how far away it is on the x-axis, you can edit how far away it is on the y-axis, you can edit the amount of blur it's given, also the opacity and all the other things, as well as if you wanted to, you could change the color. So we're going to blur this out a little bit more. We're going to move this down a little bit and over to the side a little bit. And I'm going to make this a little bit more visible. And that's kind of a cool little effect for now. So yeah, that's Drop Shadow. I'm going to hit Command Z, and now I'm going to go into Effect, Stylize, Feather. So what the feather does is, once again, if I click Preview, it sort of feathers out or erases some of the edges of my letter. So if I hit OK and I click off this real quick, as you can see, it goes from being a very harsh letter with very, very strong, bold edges to more of a feathered and soft edge. This could be an effect that you can utilize for your project. Command Z, and now Effect, Stylize, Inner Glow. This, as the name suggests, gives you a glow on the inside of your text. You can change the color of that glow by clicking over here. You can change the opacity. You can change the type of glow, multiply, screen, overlay, hard light, stuff like that. Play around with it. You can also do the blur, or change it from center or edge. Next one, Effect, Stylize, Outer Glow. Does the same thing as the inner glow, but on the outside of the text. So I'm going to switch this glow to red. I'm going to make the blur pretty wide. And when I click preview, now I get this glow kind of coming outside of the text. And as I lower, I can see that that blur is changing. Make sure you keep that preview checked. Once again, change the color, change the mode, whatever you need to do, it gives you a glow on the outside of your text. Okay, so cancel. I'm going to go Effect, Stylize, Round Corners. This one's not very flashy. It does round your corners out. You really probably won't use this too often because now that Illustrator has included the new rounded corner features when you use your direct selection tool, you don't necessarily need to use that as much as you used to back in older versions. And finally, the last one, Stylize, is Scribble. This one's a pretty cool one. If you click on this, it will make your text look like scribbles. There's a lot of different options of how far you can scribble, how much you can scribble, the variations of your scribble. There's a lot that you can play with, a lot that you can mess around with. You also have some custom settings, some default settings. So you have default, you have a childlike scribble, and so on and so forth. So definitely take advantage and try and experiment with that. It could be an extremely useful tool for you in this project and beyond.